I left university and that was a big struggle for me. I'd become a Christian, fortunately in time to be able to rearrange all my university studies to try and ask the question, what are the facts? You know, the stories are great. I mean, evolution's a great story, but what's the actual facts? Because in this life, you don't run your business on a story. You run your business because this is a good object, it sells, it's a fact, right? And that's the way the world works, otherwise you just crash, right? So by the time I'd finished university, I had to be honest, I knew the facts didn't help evolution, but that still didn't help me because here am I trying to put God and evolution together because I thought, well, perhaps that's a solution.
Well,
God's
many
the
do
link,
believe
you know.
that, and we've got some
yeah,
viewers
that's
who
right.
may
I can
phone in tonight.
understand that, and it took me a
Good.
long time to struggle through that issue until God put one thought in my mind. Let me hand you one more fossil, and they can see all these, as I said, on evidenceweb.net. What do you reckon that is, mate?
Hang on a sec, let me get my glasses on.
Yeah.
You know,
You're
they used to be good,
Howard. You're evidence of the opposite of evolution.
Exactly, but no, I can change that. Now here we have what? There's a tooth in there, is it?
That is. What sort of a tooth?
Saber tooth?
Well, it's actually a fossil shark's tooth.
It's a shark's tooth?
Shark, yeah. Nice big shark's tooth.
How do you get them to look so good?
Oh, yeah, well, you spend a lot of time polishing. It's not the cost of finding them that, you know, if you try and buy a fossil, it's the cost of cleaning them up so they actually look good so people can recognise them. But do you know how we know that's a shark's tooth, Howard?
No idea.
We've still got plenty of sharks in Australia.
Oh, okay.
Where I live, you know, the old British policy when they set up Australia as a convict place, there's a big island just off the coast where they figured it would be cheap enough to never build walls. All you needed to do was feed the sharks.
But it says something about Spielberg on the Australian. Only joking, come on.
No, in reality, you'll find that the sharks themselves are also living fossils. It's rock solid evidence again, and it's one thought that God put into my mind. If you ask this question, I've said 10 times God created things to produce their own kind. What would the evidence be? Answer: sharks would turn into sharks, people would turn into people. And they do, right? And Nautilus would turn into Nautilus, and that's the rock-solid evidence. It doesn't matter how you want to arrange it, right? Your arrangement is a story in your head. The facts actually do not support evolution. They do support creation, and I had to work my way back to saying, well, God doesn't lie. Now what do I do with the so-called scientific theories?
Okay, but let me just say, people looking at this might think, okay, but that's not very old. It could have been fossilized 50 years ago.
It could have. In fact, you may find it interesting to note that age is a very arbitrary thing, and except you experience. Now, you know you're getting older, correct, Howard?
No. Really? You've noticed the difference in a year?
I'm afraid so.
Okay.
And I'm getting older too, and my thyroid is broken, and my hair has started to fall out and go grey, and so...
Well, mine started to come back.
Oh, that's great.
How much
did
it wasn't
it cost
evolution.
You?
It was intelligently designed, this piece.
Good.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay. Just shows
Wonderful.
you.
A creation, you mean?
Yes.
But what you'll find is that, yes, age is fairly arbitrary, but that is supposed to be 50 million years old according to the evolutionists. And I don't believe in those 50 million years, but you know what I like to do? If you believe that shark hasn't changed in 50 million years, then it's time to admit it's stuck in a rut. It's time to admit it's produced its own kind. If we still got mackerel sharks today and they look exactly the same, that's how we know what that tooth is. I've been fishing for sharks since I was a kid. That's a shark's tooth beyond a shadow of a doubt. I've caught plenty of them, right? And so we've got evidence. They've done exactly what Genesis... It is sharp, isn't it, hey?
Yeah.
I hope you get the point.
Shark tooth.
Shark tooth, that's
right.
good.
So what other evidence do you have with you?
All right.
You're also
Well,
a wonderful source of information here,
get
John.
this out here because this is a issue.
That's it?
We'll have to get a conveyor belt here.
Yeah,
Howard,
no, that's
so
okay.
we're a bit of a creative design
well, you know,
here.
and look, I'm doing the camera as we talk.
You are. That's
See?
good.
Can you switch it?
I
for
can't
me?
even see anything there. That's
There you go.
good. That's on there. Now you've got it in your hand. What do you think it might be?
It looks like a piece of bark or bag.
You're not a trained geologist, are you?
Not yet, but I've worked enough with you.
Oh, yeah, no, but see, that's supposed to be some 40 million years old too. And it's a piece of pine tree bark that one of our men collected when he was up above the Arctic Circle in Canada. Now, the reason he could collect that is that there's a fossil forest that's been coming out from under the ice as the ice has been melting. Why do you think the ice has been melting, Howard?
Why
do you think the ice has been melting? Isn't it a problem the government's trying to
Well, they're
deal with
trying
today?
to sell us the idea that we got global warming.
Okay, so it is a fact
And
that in that location the ice is melting. And I'll be honest, I've been keeping track of glaciers in many regions where I've been travelling for 20 years. I've got the photographs. Many of them are melting, right? And in that location, north of the Arctic Circle, one of our men took that off a tree, and there's a whole forest of the remains of pine trees coming out from under the ice as the ice melts. So it is getting warmer in that area. But
what does this prove?
Here's a question. You see, the trees are in position where they grew. There's no pine trees growing north of the Arctic Circle today. It's too cold. If all the ice melts, one day it might get warm enough for pine trees to grow, but it's not the first time.
That's an interesting point.
You see, the pine trees used to grow there, so it used to be warmer, and there's a clue as to why people settled in Iceland and Greenland. It wasn't all that cold, not all that long ago.
Right. So
the story we're being sold about global warming, it's a great political fundraiser. But speaking as someone who's involved in geology, any geologist should be the last adherent of the global warming theory that says it's our motor cars, it's England's flatulent dairy cows that are causing the climate to be ruined, right? And so we've been doing this year, an awful lot of people have been asking us, what can we say about creation and climate change? Not just the scientific evidence, but the biblical approach. So
we're going back pre-flood then?
Yeah, we've done two things, Howard. One is we've showed them, I remember doing a course on geoclimatology at Queensland University, so I thought, I wonder if that data is still regarded as accurate. So I went and dug it out, and sure enough, it's still regarded as absolutely valid. And you can go to the websites of the universities where they plot the temperature going up and down. And you know how they do it? We live in Australia. Well, I do. You don't. You want to come and visit us someday. I live in Australia, and we've got crocodiles. Okay, so in Australia, where the crocodiles are, it's pretty warm all year. So if you find a fossil crocodile, it's reasonable to conclude that wherever that crocodile was, it used to be warm. Okay. Now, there are fossil crocodiles not far from here. So therefore, if you find fossil crocodiles in England, then there was a time when it was warm enough for the crocodiles to be here.
So you're saying really that the northern hemisphere, where we're seeing the ice melting right now, it used to be temperate climate?
Yes, you will find abundant evidence of that. You know the story that the CO2 is causing this problem?
Yes.
Well, I'm one of the last group of geology students in Australia where our degrees were sort of still connected to the Oxford-Cambridge system. So we had to study English geology. I always hated it, but now I'm grateful for it, because you don't have to look back too far to find English geologists who even in the 1600s and 1700s were saying once the CO2 level must have been much greater. And their argument, the size of the plants in the rocks at Newcastle, right, that are 10 times the size of the same plants today. Now, they mightn't have been able to do the experiment, but we can now.
How?
You see, you set up a greenhouse and you double the CO2 in the greenhouse, and the plants absolutely love it. But you see, that's just purely the scientific background, and so any geologist should say, well, here's what the climate's done. It's gone up and down, and now it's on a little up. But there's a biblical approach you can take too. Okay, Howard, let's test you. Who made the world?
I believe that it was the Lord himself.
Okay.
It says in Colossians.
Okay, so the Lord Jesus Christ made everything. He is God. In the beginning, God created. Okay, and everything he made was very good. How much clothing did Adam and Eve have on?
Initially none.
Okay, so it wasn't very hot, no sunburn, no heat stroke.
Right.
It wasn't very cold, no frostbite.
Right.
Okay, the weather was very good. And up until Noah's day, all you read about is mist every day, watering the whole surface of the earth.
Now, like a greenhouse effect.
A greenhouse, right. I come from Australia, and we've got massive drought in some place at the moment, and if the government could promise a mist every morning, that party would win the next election as far as the farmers are concerned, because they think that's very good.
Well, we've got Scotch mist here, and I think in the name
comes in bottles,
Mr. Brown.
Well, I won't go there.
All right, politics.
That's the election that never was.
That's right.
But when you come a little bit further, by Noah's day, the weather changes. First of all, by God deliberately sending the flood, and then by the time you get to Genesis chapter 8, God says to Noah, from now until the world ends, you'll have cold, you'll have heat, you'll have summer, you'll have winter. The climate will go up and down. Ah, and what's interesting is